Sorry, Chair, I can't hear you anything now.
Thank you. Good evening to members and guests, both here in Percival House and those joining us remotely, and a warm welcome to the public watching us on YouTube. So welcome to this meeting of the Strategy and Change Scrutiny Panel. This is a hybrid meeting, and I confirm that we're quora with at least 3 members present in the room, but we do have at least 1 member online as well. Before we begin, I'd like to welcome our guests this evening. So Rama Elmi, Project Coordinator at the Education and Skills Development Group, representing one of the borough's cost of living projects. Amanda Ascombe, Ealing Council's Strategic Director for Strategy and Change. Louisa MacDonald, the Council's Head of Cost of Living, and also Councillor Steve Donnelly, Portfolio Holder for Inclusive Economy. Moving on to the agenda, item 1, apologies for absence and substitutions. So I've received apologies from Councillor Charan Sharma. Are there any other apologies? No, there's a couple of people not here, but they may just come along in a moment. Yes, indeed. Thank you. Item 2, urgent matters. There are no urgent matters this evening. Item 3, declarations of interest. Does any member have a declaration of interest in relation to any of the items? No, I don't see any. So thank you. Item 4, matters to be considered in private. There are no matters to be considered in private. Item 5, minutes. So the Item 9 in the minutes of the last meeting, the Workforce Strategy Progress Report, has been updated since the agenda was published, and that's been circulated to members. Are there any corrections or comments on the minutes? No. In which case, members are asked to agree the minutes of the 22nd July meeting as amended. Agreed, thank you. Those were agreed. So now, item 6, panel work programme report. We have the work programme. As noted in the report, 3 councillors went on the site visit to the Ealing Food Bank on the 17th of September, which helped inform perspectives on the reports for this meeting. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make that. I don't know if anyone has any comments on that. Would you like to make a comment? Yes, Councillor Rice.
Yes, so I can do so. I mean, it was a really successful, very rewarding meeting. Myself, Councillor Sharma and Councillor Mohan went along in the end. And so what happened is that we did get a chance to speak to volunteers. We spoke to people who were running the food bank, and we spoke to people using the food bank. And it was actually really helpful to see matters from so many perspectives, and to really just find out how the whole food bank, how it functions and how it really serves people. We were told that it was established in 2013, Ealing Food Bank, and we were explained to us the system, how it works there, where people arrive with a voucher from the council hub, from their GP, a health visitor, or an addiction charity. And there's people would receive 1 voucher a week, and sometimes people do turn up without a voucher, and of course they'd be very distressed and tearful perhaps in those situations, but they are given advice on how to go about obtaining a voucher so they can receive some food for that week. The one thing that was really enlightening was that it's more than just a food bank. It's about taking people to the next part of their journey. So what we weren't prepared for, but did see, is that there were people sat there behind desks, and they were providing advice on matters such as benefits and debts, and also on translations for filling out forms, and general help with completing forms. And also help in order to stop the council sending around the bailiffs, because people were in very desperate situations. But it was actually very interesting is that we were also hearing about how people receive advice generally on what they're entitled to, which might actually help them avoid the use of the food bank in the future, because it might help them to become in a better state financially if they actually did actually get hold of the benefits they're entitled to. Another element too as well is that there were assisting refugees and asylum seekers, which brings into a borough sanctuary that's very important to us here in Ealing right now. There was one point that they did make on the day is that they were short of biscuits and treats. So they didn't have all the food that they really wanted there, and they were actually running low on stock. And they need more funding, and they've been doing work in terms of having fundraisers, and there were actually people who worked at the food bank who were going to be running in the Ealing Half Marathon to raise money. And so, I mean, the kind of things that they probably would want really from us at the council is if we can try and publicise to people outside that there are ways in order to donate money and also to donate items that are needed. And it's interesting because in the week leading up to our visit, what happened is that I did see a list of what Ealing Food Bank was after, and one of the items that was mentioned was vegetarian meals. So I did bring along some vegan tinned meals, hoping that might be useful, because one thing that does actually make me think is that a lot of people come along to a food bank. Some of them have got religious dietary requirements. Some of them have got, like myself, being a vegan, have got other dietary requirements. So it's really good if we ensure that there's everything there that people need. So that might have been useful. But I think it is actually something to bear in mind that people do need more than just a few tins. Maybe a few biscuits and a few treats are really helpful as well in order to help with that side of things. There's also a big element of it, talking about biscuits, is that people do come along and get a chance to have tea and biscuits with other people and to just enjoy a bit of company. And that probably helps with mental health as well. So the whole thing is quite holistic. And it was just, as I say, it was just so incredibly just rewarding, and it was just so heartening to see there's something so successful going on in our borough, as sad as it is, the fact that it does actually have to exist in the first place. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Rice. And Councillor Mohan, do you want to add something?
At all, there's nothing for me to say. The only thing I can say that I found it very useful and very informative. There were so many things that I didn't know in relation to how the food bank is working and what sort of difference it's making to the residents of our borough. I found the working there on that day very structured and very organized. And as Councillor Rice has said, it's not just a food bank, it's much more than that. There is a lot of advice that is around, and I had no idea that that the food bank also provides that. And so I think the only thing which I would like to stress that they can do with more funds, so we should make every effort to help them in any way we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Mataza, did you want to add something as well?
Yes, I just wanted to add, having a second hat on me as a doctor, that biscuits are very good if you don't have anything, but healthy options are much better. I am involved in an open kitchen, which is on the A4, which provides food, and the local big stores, Tesco and others, they provide their towards the expiry date food, for example, bananas, oranges, and I think it's worth exploring that option as well. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And I know in my ward there's the St Mary's Church. They have a similar scheme where they get expired food and give it on a basis where there's no referral needed. So it's an open system. Councillor Taylor, did you put your hand up? Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably a similar point. I don't know the office that you answer it. I mean, the food bank is, I don't know, it's kind of semi-official because it's referred, whereas places of worship are kind of just setting up, and there's quite a few across the borough and across London. I know Ease, as a refugee charity, has does one every week, and when they meet, and I'm just wondering if there's the demand on food and supplies. Are they suffering in any sense, or is a shortfall? You know, they all go to the Felix Project, they all go to City Harvest. You know, there's a call on quite a few charities. I mean, I don't know if the food bank, is it like competing with them or something as well? I don't know how it works.
Yeah, so Louisa, do you have an answer? So putting you on the spot slightly because this isn't but yeah.
I can answer the best that I can. So there's a huge number of emergency crisis food support available across the borough in all wards. I know that some run in Rama's organisation. I'm sure she'll be able to give you more details. The Ealing Food Bank is a Trussell Trust organisation, so it's part of a national organisation. But we do have in the borough, run by the council's climate and sustainability team, what we call the Ealing Food Borough Partnership. So we've actually listed all of the different available support across the borough. We've mapped it out so people can see where food is closest to them. Like Councillor Ball said, some require referrals, others are much more informal. I'm not sure about the one that you're involved in, whether people can just turn up and drop in. But yeah, there's a huge variety available. But I know that there is also a huge demand as well.
Great, thanks very much. That's very helpful. Councillor Midder online put her hand up as well. Councillor Midder?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My suggestion is that if we need more food for the food bank, so we can approach to the religious places like Gurdwara Temple. They have extra food there. They are willing to give to their charities, because I'm working for the Heartling charity when I was a mayor. So we are getting all the things from the religious places. There are more foods, everything extra. So we have to approach. This is my suggestion. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. Yeah, so yes, I would also mention, so back to the food bank, I would mention that they extended an invitation to any panel members that couldn't make it before to attend. So any other comments or questions on the work programme? That's what this mini debate arose out of. Yeah, so can we agree the work programme as set out? Great, thanks. Right, so we move. Okay. So we move on to the first substantive item, item 7, the cost of living and response to benefit changes. So this report will be presented by Louisa MacDonald, Head of Cost of Living, and it highlights how the Council's dedicated cost of living team coordinates services across the borough to ensure vulnerable residents can access both immediate and longer term support. So Louisa, over to you.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the opportunity to present our work to you this evening. It's great to be able to show all of the things that we've done to date. So just to give you a quick overview, I work in a small team. It's myself and 2 other members of staff who work there part-time. We were established in late 22 in response to the cost of living crisis. And our ultimate mission as a team is to do everything we can to support and coordinate any support available, both provided by the council, but also provided by other local voluntary sector organisations across the borough. And our ultimate mission is to help people to ultimately live financially independent lives. So it's a borough-wide and multi-agency approach, and we structure our work around 6 key priorities. These are early interventions, so we're looking at trying to prevent crisis before it actually happens, before people are getting to that point. We try to make life easier for people. So we do that by a variety of interventions that will put money into people's pockets ultimately, and connecting them to the support that they need. We want to get more people online. So we know that by tackling digital exclusion, people not only can save money, but they can also improve their overall health and well-being. A lot of the work that we do is around just getting the message out to people. So what we've found in the last couple of years is that people are unfortunately having to access support that have never needed to call on help before. As we all know, it's a difficult and complex system to navigate. So actually just getting the message out about what's available and how people can access that support is a task in itself. A lot of our work is around partnering with our amazing voluntary community sector and making sure we're strengthening those partnerships and that people within the communities know what support is available closest to their home. But also being part of the wider picture. I think over the last 3 years, cost of living has come up in almost every conversation in the council. So making sure that our insight and intelligence and the data that we now have can feed into those conversations as we move forward is really important as well. I'm not going to go through the full detailed report. So I've, as submitted as an appendix, our annual sort of 24-25 update report that provides sort of snapshots in time throughout the year. So if you've taken the time to read that, then great. If you haven't been able to do that, then I'll just highlight some of the key achievements from last year. So as an organisation, we distributed over £4 million worth of household support fund. This included both shopping vouchers to low-income families aligned with the school holidays, also direct support to our care leavers, and also grants to voluntary sector organisations to distribute cash and other support directly to people within their communities. In addition to that, we made over 1,800 local welfare assistance payments to people who applied. And we distributed 240 laptops to people who were not only digitally excluded, but also unemployed. This was a really interesting programme that saw some fantastic results because we actually reduced unemployment within that group of people who received the laptops from 69% to 26%, which was incredible. Also, in terms of digital inclusion, we've distributed over 300 SIM cards via our community hubs in our libraries to people who can't afford or don't have mobile access on their telephones. We have done quite a bit of proactive work already. We actually made contact with over 3,000 older residents. So we just telephoned them to check in to see how they were, make sure that they're okay, see if there's any support that they were entitled to. And we also trained some of our key frontline staff to be able to undertake online benefit checks with people within the community. And that's also been a really successful programme. We've seen those stats come back that those checks have risen from pretty much next to nothing to over 1,000 a month. So that's something that we're going to continue to push as we move forward. Another really successful campaign has been around auto-enrolling families into the free school meals. So just 219 children managed to unlock a huge amount of funding, which is equal to £695 per family, but also almost £500,000 in school funding, which was fantastic. We are the team that coordinates alongside the voluntary sector the Warm and Welcome Spaces campaign. This is something that is just about to start at the end of this month as we approach winter. But last year we supported over 23,000 people across the borough via our community sector partners to offer warmth, food and sort of social connection to people who are in the community. Moving on to sort of not necessarily direct support to residents, but other things that we've been involved in just to try and improve the offer that we have across the borough. So we've developed something that we've called the Borough Frontline. As I sort of alluded to before, sometimes it's really difficult to get this information out to people. And what we kind of recognised is that we're talking to people, people within community, voluntary and faith sectors are often talking to the same people. It's really sometimes difficult because of the complexities of the system to make sure that everyone has access to the right information. So what we've done is develop a network of people working across the borough, both for the council and also for voluntary sector community organisations and partner organisations, so that we can really try and share resources and improve the support that as collectively as a group we can offer to our residents. I'm not going to talk too much now about the lift platform because that's going to be a separate item, so I'll park that for later. But just to say, really, we're really proud of everything that we've achieved so far. I think the work that we've done has made a real difference to individuals' lives. We want to continue doing that, but now we've got a lot of those building blocks in place. We want to move to a more proactive approach, and we do just recognise that working alongside our colleagues in the community, voluntary and faith sector is absolutely key to the success of all of the work that me and my team have undertaken this year. We absolutely know that we wouldn't have been able to do it without them. We've got some great relationships with them, and they're the people who are really offering support to residents day in, day out. So probably leads me on to introducing Rama, who has got, you know, first-hand experience of supporting customers within the community. Rama works for ESDG, and they have been one of the voluntary sector organisations that we've been working with since the beginning of issuing the household support funding to voluntary sector organisations. So we're in our 3rd year now of working together. So yeah, we've got a good relationship, and you've been doing all the hard work at the other end. So
Rama, yes, please.
Yes, hi, good evening.
Thanks.
Thank you for having me. I just wanted to give you a brief description of that better, Hitesh? Oh, fabulous. I just wanted to give you a brief description of some of the work that we do through the household support grant. We've been funded to support families on low income. So there's 3 tranches to what we do. So we give practical support in terms of giving people food parcels. And in terms of that delivery, we support families who are struggling or are what we call food poverty. So with that, we not only give food parcels, what we do is we provide them with training, just telling them about healthy eating. I know you mentioned that earlier, but realistically speaking, it's much more expensive to eat healthily when you can find cheaper products in the freezer in Iceland. So we have to have those conversations and those dialogues with families about what works better for them in the long term and working at best with the budgets that they have. We've been supporting families with helping them. Just going back to the food parcels, year on year, we get less for our buck. For, I would say, what cost us £30 2 years ago is probably costing us £50 now in terms of the parcels that we're delivering to families. So if we see that hit, they're seeing that tenfold as well. Families who are struggling with heating, we help support them with not just heating, but utility bills. We look at ways of them maximizing their incomes through our advisors and working with them to see what are the benefits that they can get. We provide our elderly in the community, especially we do a big push around winter time in terms of draft proofing, electric heaters, blankets, anything that could save them and get them through the winter periods. As our work and relationship with Louisa, we are now a warm space because of the household support grant, which means that we have an open door, open arms policy in the winter. We provide a room where people can come in and have tea, coffee, laptops, and access to online and that kind of mitigates the digital divide that we see in the community as well. I just want to highlight that the families that come to us come with complex needs and it's not just one issue. It's not just that they're struggling with their utility bills or there's debts, there's housing, there's health, there's mental health, there's dealing with children who have additional needs. So it's not just one issue that they come to us. We've seen an increase in terms of the level of debt that people have it's gone from an average probably £200 to £300 to probably thousands in terms of dealing with what they have to manage. I'm just not sure. I'm just trying to go. I'm just trying to see. I think that's it. We've got a pool of volunteers who work with our elderly community, and also in terms of delivering food parcels. So if people are not well enough to be able to come to the centre, then we go out to them. I think year on year, we can't meet the demand. There's an increase on our services, and we do not advertise our services. We don't. It's through referrals through to partners, and probably through.
Sorry, I think you've put this off.
It's gone off. Yeah. Just year on year, we've seen an increase and a demand, and every year there's people that we turn away, that we can't meet their needs because we don't have the budget or the capacity. I think the council does a really wonderful job in terms of trying to keep it. It's DWP funding, so it really, the turnaround on it is usually the council does. They're not very forthcoming in terms of when the funding will come through again, so it makes it harder for us to plan ahead. But this is our third year, and I just think for us, it seems like things are getting harder, and what you would consider to be, I guess, the usual suspect isn't the case. So we have families who have both parents who are in work and still coming to the food banks and coming to use our services because their income would have been enough a year or two ago, but it's not just, it's just enough for them to keep their head above the water at the moment.
I see, yes.
Yeah.
And is that, I mean, you said you've got a very close working relationship with Louisa and council officers, but is there anything that the council could, and is there any more the council could do to support the work you're doing?
I think as a sector as a whole, I guess there's room for improvement in terms of how we cooperate with each other with the local authority. I think some departments are better at engaging with the voluntary sector and utilising our services and vice versa than other departments. I don't really know what the best way for that would be.
Thanks. So moving on to questions, which, well, mostly questions to Louisa, but there might be other questions to Rama. Councillor Mortaza, I had you first, and I'd like indications from other councillors.
Okay. Whilst this is my fresh memory, what Rama said, first of all, thank you very much for doing such a lovely job. When I read your board, it showed skill development and education. But when we heard from you is totally a different avenue. Now, my question is that short term, yes, definitely, this is our all responsibility and duty of care to provide food. But is there any long-term plan from your charity to skill them, upskill them, and getting them jobs or internships so that they become more useful for their families and the society as well?
Absolutely. In terms of what we deliver for the household support grant, that's it. But as an organisation as a whole, we do mentoring for young people. We do ESOL classes. We do employability skills. But and we work with local schools. We work with the job centre. We do CV building. We do interview prep. We get them ready for employment. So, but again, that comes from external funding from other sources, not necessarily through the local authority, but we do.
Thank you. Louise, if I may, what wonderful jobs you're doing. 4 million support for food and 240 laptops. I think we need to advertise this more. And one of my suggestions would be that we have nearly 72 GP surgeries in the borough. And if we could leave these leaflets there, although I wanted to rewrite this, that Ealing Council has lots of tips, advice and money to help your manager. That's just joking. But yeah, we wish. But I think excellent leaflets. I think we should advertise it more, and so that people can have access to it. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Yes, so I had Councillor Rice next, and then Councillor Mohan. Yeah.
Thank you. I'd just like to first of all congratulate myself at this council and also other councils for contacting pensioners after what's happened with the winter fuel allowance, because I'll just say it doesn't live in Ealing, but my dad lives elsewhere, and the council contacted him and got him to apply for a pension credit, and so he's actually ended up better off financially with the pension credits, and he keeps his winter fuel allowance. So I think that's actually just a real, that just really goes to show just how effective we are in ensuring that people receive the benefits they need. So bearing that in mind, I'm just wondering about if I could just expand a little bit on how we perhaps reach out to maybe some of the kind of the hidden poverty. Sometimes you might see middle class people, for example, who are not really grasped, but they need help as well. And so what do we do there? I mean, one example that I gave when we had the food bank visit was that, on a very sad irony, that there's a pop star who sang on the original Band-Aid record, Do They Know It's Christmas? And he's been on social media in the past couple of years saying that he now needs a food bank. And so hopefully he's going to put himself out of that situation. But it just goes to show that we do need to reach out. There's other point as well would be, are there people that maybe try to take from the system who don't necessarily deserve to do so? How do you filter that out, make sure that everyone is properly means tested in that sense, just in order to ensure that we have confidence in the system, because some people might get quite annoyed if they see other people benefiting who don't necessarily need to. On another thing as well, is that it's wonderful to hear that you're helping with laptops and other help for people who are looking for work. Do we find that there are people who, once they've found employment, do they need to come and receive further help? For example, would they need help buying clothing or paying for Wi-Fi, or even continue to have a laptop in order so that they can continue to do their job? Because not every employer is particularly helpful when it comes to that. Thank you.
Quite a few. I think there's about 3 questions there, but Louisa, initially, I don't know if Amanda or Stephen might want to jump in on any of them, but yeah.
Yeah, I'll take them in turn, if that's all right. Your point about middle class poverty, agree, this is a massive issue, and it goes back to my point about earlier. You know, we are now having to support people who've never had to ask for help before, and that's an issue in itself, actually, because people are often too proud to even put their hand up and ask for help, which is a whole other issue that we have to try and get around. Doing things like producing the leaflets, putting them in places that are universal to people, setting up things like the Borough Front Line to get those messages out, so that everyone who's coming into contact with people who might have an inkling that they might be struggling is armed with the information that they need to support that person at that point in time. I think those small things are really helping. We've done a similar thing in schools, recognising that schools are a real sort of universal community for people of all sort of breadths of our communities. So we've set up something called the Family Support Network within schools that is looking at providing that kind of pastoral type wellbeing posts that sit within most school communities. Again, making sure that they've got access to the right information so that they can offer support to their families in that trusted environment, because often they've got that relationship already. So really trying to come at it at all angles has been our kind of approach to date. Filtering people out of the system, I do acknowledge that that could be an issue. I think actually I would look at it from the other opposite perspective, that often we actually make it a bit too difficult for people sometimes to apply. We do ask for a lot of information. There's a lot of verification to go through. We do checks. We're really quite robust in that regard. I would argue, from a cost of living perspective, I'd like to see that process be a bit more straightforward for customers. It's hard enough already. And I think actually the risk of sort of benefit fraud is really quite low, to be honest. So it's not something we need to put a lot of energy into fighting, which is great. So I'm actually launching a project at the moment looking at our local welfare assistance process to see how we can make it a bit more easier for people to fill out that form, not ask for so much evidence and information to back up the claims, just to try and support people a bit better. In terms of the jobs, there's a huge amount of employment support available across the borough. You've described some already that your organisation offers. Just as a council alone, there are a couple of different teams actually across the organisation that also provide employment support. So we provide job clubs where we will go and support people in looking for jobs, similar to what Ram has described in terms of helping with CVs, interview practice, drafting applications, etc. And we also work closely with colleagues at Job Centre Plus, and they do have lots of sort of benefits that they can offer, like money to go and buy clothes for interviews, for example, or support with childcare while you're attending interviews, and things like that. So we try and, particularly within the local welfare assistance team, look at all of the support that someone requires who's in that situation and give them access to all of it in one go. So the ultimate objective is obviously to get people into work and to skill people up to be able to lead a more financially independent life. So anything we can do to make that happen happens within that sort of one interaction.
Sorry, can I just add, we work a lot with women who want to go from working part-time to full-time, and we find the right training courses for them, or the right colleges that can work with them and take their childcare needs into consideration for them to be able to move into the next level career-wise.
Thanks, Rama. And Steve, do you want to add something?
Yes, just on that point, I think there's always going to be a difference in the relationship between individuals and a council or a public body on one side and a voluntary or private charitable arrangement on another. I think the trust relationship of the latter, they'll tend not to be about excessive challenge or the sense of not believing. I mean, you want people to come, you want to draw people in, you want people to feel safe. We got a separate layer to deal with in what you might call where public money is concerned. I mean, our money is taxpayers' money, and we have to put more. There are always going to be more hoops to go through. When I think in terms of Louisa's point, there's always going to be perhaps a point where you've already worked out that the person qualifies. So perhaps you don't need to ask questions 5, 6, and 7 because they passed through questions 1 to 4. But of course, some of the things we're talking about here, like a welfare assistance, it's not a bottomless pit. So it's not like applying for a national state benefit where soon as you demonstrate qualification, you are entitled to whatever that benefit is. I mean, the hoops to go through may be significant, but once you have met them, you are guaranteed that benefit at whatever the level is. And it's for the budget. It's for the government, for example, to budget in anticipation of whatever they think that the need is going to be in a particular year. Well, local welfare assistance doesn't fall into that kind of category. It's a finite resource, and we must always be, in a sense, thinking about how we manage prioritisation as circumstances change. I mean, when I talk to Louisa and the team on a regular basis, I think Lisa will know one of the things I'm always curious about is, and you'll see it in the report, is quite significant fluctuation in the number of applications per month, number of successful applications per month, and the amount of money that's generated. And so I'm always annoying Louisa by asking her, why does it fluctuate so much? It's a sort of, those are the kind of number thing gets in my mind, but it does mean, I think it demonstrates how difficult it is to plan and budget precisely. So because we are in the business of identifying relative need, which in some circuit, in good times, that's going to that the bar for that is going to be quite low. In tough times, the bar gets a bit higher because there are more people competing, and the amount we can give to each person reduces. So, I mean, I think it's absolutely right, and we should keep working to minimise obstruction. But there is a reason that we ask questions. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, well, that's right. I was going to ask a follow-up, but you answered it in the last sentence, so that's great. So I've got Councillor Mohan, and then I'll ask Councillor Midder in the room, and then Councillor Taylor.
Ealing is a multicultural borough, and there are several languages which are spoken in Ealing. So how do you work with the service users? I have seen that. And how do you work with the people whose first language is not English? And also, how do you reach people who may not be aware of the services we are providing?
Absolutely. The complete breadth of languages spoken in the borough, produces a massive challenge to make sure that we can ensure that everyone is aware of the support that's available. It's an issue across the borough for all services that we offer as an organisation. We're fortunate to have a team of people within our community hubs, many of who speak different languages. We again rely a lot heavily on our voluntary sector colleagues often to support us with that and offer support within local communities. In terms of our written communications, I think we just showed we have tried to translate those into the top community languages that we have in the borough. And also our website is now available in a number of community languages as well. So the whole of the Ealing website can be translated into our top community languages. So we acknowledge that it's a constant challenge. We do our best to sort of get through. I think technology is really helping us now with that. Things like Google Translate in a library setting, it's not an ideal solution, but it is a solution actually. And people who often struggle or where English isn't their first language are actually quite used to engaging and transacting in that way. I've seen it in action many a time. So we are reliant on those things as well, but it is a challenge.
Thank you. Thanks. Yes, for those online, the reference was to a leaflet which has 9 of the main community languages and a QR code to get to a lot more for information about help with debt. Yeah, so I've got Councillor Midder online now, and then Councillor Taylor, and then Councillor Ray. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. My question is that, have you keep any term and condition when you distribute the computer?
Any terms and conditions when you distribute computers?
Terms and conditions to distribute the computers, yes, you had to prove that you didn't already have one. So you were in fact digitally excluded and you were out of work but looking for work. They were the 3 main criteria for the laptop scheme. So we found that we gave them out through a variety of referral partners, both within community hubs, our Learn Ealing team, some of our employment teams that were coming into contact with these people, but we also had referrals coming from adult services and children's services as well for those.
How would someone prove they don't have a computer? You just have to take the word for it, would you? Or,
I mean, yeah, we do have to see it. These sort of bits of information tend to come out in conversations with people. So we let sort of the frontline teams that were likely to come into contact with this sort of cohort made sure that they were aware that the laptops existed and what criteria had to be met in order to access them. It wasn't a programme that we advertised. We didn't put something in around Ealing and ask people to come forward. People were identified through those natural conversations that they were already having with frontline members of staff.
Sorry, just to add to that, with the families that we work with, we know which families are using, where the kids are using their mobile phones to access homework. So just from working with your cohort, you'll know those who are really at need.
Good. Okay, great. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. My colleagues next to me warned me not to ask too many questions, so I've got a list of 6. So a couple of things I'll just agree with the 2 colleagues anyway. One was about GPs.
You probably can have 6 as
well. No, it's fine. Don't be brief. I'll agree with Dr. Mataza in terms of the GPs, because I know in relation to homelessness, they often want to know where to go for information. So actually it might be a good place to engage with GPs for advice for their patients. And the second thing, perhaps about the posters, if you get posters in places of worship or community centres to put them up, might be a good idea. It doesn't, even if just one poster in a temple or Gurdwara might be something to, if it's already there, I don't know. Anyway, my questions was, sorry, on the telephone when you reach out, and it's not a trick question, but if someone rings me up and says, we can save you money, and Ealing Council's phone numbers are usually anonymous. So I'm just wondering how, in terms of the reach out, could there be more? Is that an issue possibly? The second one was quantifying it. This isn't like an investment in people, isn't it? The money they get saves money in ill health, physical problems, etc. And you may not have the answer, but I'm sure somewhere along the way it's been quantified somehow how much we're saving in the whole system as a whole somewhere. And the third one was about households in temporary accommodation. So what reach out are we doing with them as well? So just the 3.
Thank you for restricting it to 3. Louisa.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. We're constantly on the lookout for more places to promote the services that we have on offer. GPs I've been in contact with, they've been round all once before, so we probably need to refresh our stocks in those particular places, and certainly in faith groups as well. You've just written that down on my sheet there. In terms of the calls, we interestingly we didn't have much feedback that people thought it was a scam. We did a lot of outreach during COVID. I don't know if you recall the Ealing Together team, we actually reached out to about 30,000 residents throughout COVID, and it was a run on from that campaign. We heavily publicised the fact that we were doing that. It was very much around just checking in on people's well-being. Did they need any support? Then it wasn't specifically related to cost of living, but it was a run on to that campaign. So actually, I think when those calls were coming through, they weren't unexpected. We're literally just right this week reaching out to people again for pension credit, and I've had a brief update from colleagues earlier today to say that the response has been overwhelmingly positive. People were actually delighted that there was someone there who was prepared to help them make an application. So it is an issue with the withheld number. But what we do is we invite people to contact us back at the call centre. So if people are not comfortable with the conversation, we will always say, we understand why you're wary, you're right to be wary, you can call me back at the main council's contact centre number that they can call us back on. So we've got measures in place to try and overcome that, but it's tricky. We do also make sure that any letters going out, particularly to vulnerable groups, I always send round to all customer services colleagues to make sure that everyone is aware that this letter's gone out. So if we do get calls either through the main switchboard, which does often happen, people are aware and can just confirm that it's a valid communication from the council.
Just a quick one on that. So if you're doing another launch, would you let the community groups know as well? Because I'm not saying council, they don't trust the council, but will they trust community groups that I've just had a call and you could verify it or something? You know, if someone rings you and said, oh, yeah.
Yeah,
We do. Whenever there's a new initiative, we get notification from Louisa and various departments as to what initiatives are going.
Yeah, we try our best to keep everyone as informed as possible, but there are a lot of pieces of the puzzle, if that makes sense. So yeah, we do try our best for that. Households in temporary accommodation, we've got an increasing number, as you know, in the borough. We're reaching out to them. We're actually going into areas in temporary accommodation. I learnt today actually about a new initiative that Learn Healing are doing, and Work Healing, about specifically working with families and individuals living in temporary accommodation. It's one of the areas that we're looking at in terms of process, in terms of debt and arrears. So we're looking at people who are in arrears for their temporary accommodation and how we can better support them now, but also looking at the process to try and get better touch points in place so that we can stop people from getting into those arrears in the first place. So there's a variety of different work happening around temporary accommodation. Not all of it's done by me and my team. In fact, most of it isn't. It's done by people from across the council and also in housing as well. But there is a lot of activity going on at the moment, particularly focusing on that cohort. It's really hard to quantify. We have this conversation regularly. We've got the Lift platform, which we'll talk a little bit more about. We're now in a position to track some of these real outcomes in terms of financial output and what that really means to people, and people, the bottom line in people's everyday budgets. So we're just getting to a point now where we can start quantifying the investment, but it's really is difficult to quantify because some of the outcomes, just in terms of, I don't know, something like measuring the outcome of increased social isolation as a result of being able to visit a warm space close to your home. It's really difficult to measure that. We know that there's a benefit there. We know there's probably a health benefit there. Again, the National Health Service have got a huge bill for people who are living in damp, cold conditions. So we know that being able to give people support to pay their energy bills and keep their homes more energy efficient has a direct impact on people's health and therefore the NHS bill. Did you want to comment?
Thanks, Louisa. As Louisa says, it's really, we get this question in all our sort of preventative upstream work, and there are lots of charts you can find if one person avoids going into hospital for this, or if one person goes that. So we could do a return on investment, if you like, but I think our attitude has been, Louisa is very modest. The team is tiny, minuscule. So 2 full-time people. When the team originally started, we borrowed parts of people, skills and capacity, and sort of stitched together a team. The team is now more secure, formalised, permanent, but it is still just Louisa and 2 part-time people. So the investment from a council perspective is really quite small for a huge amount of money going directly into people's pockets. So I suppose we have avoided those slightly artificial links between, if we do X, we definitely get that outcome. And what we are thinking about is, for that small investment, what's the width of our reach? Are we getting more money into more people's pockets? And are we hearing that qualitative data that says this is making sure that people are more financially sustainable?
Thanks. And Councillor Rye, sorry, you've been waiting a while.
Thought you could all hear me. Sorry. I forgot. Most of my questions have been answered, except I would like you to elaborate a little bit on digital inclusion. Are the laptops that you distribute, are they recycled, or, how can we improve on that?
So the programme that we issued, the 240 laptops, was a programme with funding from an innovation fund. Those 240 laptops are gone. They're out the door now. Access to devices is an ongoing issue. we as an organisation donated 1,100 of our old retired devices to the Good Things Foundation. So they are a national organisation that run what they call a device bank. So we've actually just put in applications, and I've encouraged all of the voluntary sector organisations across the borough to also put in applications to get some of those devices back into Ealing. So we've put one in asking for 60 devices. I know that other voluntary sector organisations have done the same, and I know some have already found out that they've been successful, which is great. So it's an ongoing campaign to get access to devices. We did run another campaign in partnership with the Digital Poverty Alliance and Pay by Phone back at this time last year, where we asked both council staff and also members of the public to bring their old unused devices that are sitting around in drawers and cupboards at home that they don't know what to do with, securely wipe them, and we redistributed them. In fact, Councillor Donnelly redistributed them directly through the family support network I described earlier. So those specific set of devices went directly to children within schools who didn't have access to laptops to do their homework. So we're constantly on the lookout for devices. We're looking at what we're going to do with our next set of devices as Ealing Council. We're looking to engage local businesses who may also have a huge pile of devices building up in their storeroom somewhere that we could work with to try and get those securely wiped, refurbished and back out to people in the community who need them. So it's an ongoing effort.
So if we've got spare devices, where do we send them?
The council?
Yes, I mean, for example, if any of the councillors have got additional devices that they need to get rid of.
Oh, personal devices
yeah.
at home. So at the moment we haven't got a scheme running, but we're looking into options to rerun the scheme that we did with the Digital Poverty Alliance. It might be something that comes online shortly. We have also been in conversations around to see whether we can get like a refurbish fix it scheme set up at one of our waste and recycling centres. So that's another thing that's proving a bit tricky, but it's an avenue that we're looking at as well. So
it's really excellent because it's going to open up doors, especially for children doing their homework on little phones. Okay. That's
Yes.
great. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, there are charities and individuals who do rebuild donated machines. I've seen on the local Facebook groups, I've seen there are people who do, you know, in terms of the small scale thing where it is individuals handing over their own machines. So there are people out there that are securely wiping them and passing them on to good causes. Good. So I think everyone's asked questions. We move on to recommendations on this item. Right at the beginning, Councillor Rice brought up that the council could have a role in publicising what items food banks need. That sounds like a good idea in terms of, you know, kind of Marcom's kind of activity. Do members agree with that? Councillor Taylor is looking puzzled.
I do, but are we going to be specific about which food banks?
Well, I think food banks generally, so not just Ealing Food Bank, because clearly there are other. Yeah, it shouldn't be just specific to Ealing Food Bank. Yeah. Members generally agreeable. Yeah.
I think it'd be a case of the food bank would have to specify what it is that they need at that point, at that time. So that's the idea of whether they need pasta, whether they need tins of custard. And I think really it'd be up to the food bank to direct us to what they want us to publicise.
Yeah, that's right. But it wouldn't just be Ealing Food Bank. It would be the other so there'd be, you know, a mechanism where, you know, the council would reach out and say, or, you know, as I say, would be within Marcom's, would reach out and say, you know, we are willing to publicise your list of items if you tell us what they are, kind of thing, you know. Yeah, I think, well, I don't know. What do other members think? Oh, okay, so I think what we're talking about is that the council would publicise the list of current items that a range of food banks operating in Ealing would need time. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Seems to be general agreement.
Well, it is sort of like, let me just play devil's advocate a second, because I'm just thinking if I'm a resident's not in need of any support, and I think, why is my councillor doing this? Why doesn't the council just give the stuff? Or can we just give the list? I'm just, maybe I'm just thinking of weirdly here, but
Working in partnership.
Yeah, I think there was general. I think there was general support for it. There was a majority, I think, in the room. Yeah, that's right. Right, great. And then there was a point arising out of Councillor Mataza's questioning about advertising the cost of living support more. I think that there already have been one round through GP surgeries, but there could be more through GP surgeries. There could be more through places of worship. So it's not a radical new proposal, but I don't know, would that be something that people would agree to? Clearly, some of the elements that, as Councillor Donnelly was saying, some of the elements are cash limited. So the more you publicise them, the less each person gets potentially. But even saying that, it's better for people to know about them so that, you know, the broadest possible range of people benefit. So general support for that one, I think. Does anyone else have recommendations arising from this item? So Mike, sorry.
I think the work on accessing more laptops should definitely continue. I don't know whether we need to write that down.
Yeah, so in terms of I guess, yeah. So certainly we would encourage more obtaining more laptops so they can be given to financially excluded families. I mean, again, it's not a radical new proposal, but it sounds like a sensible recommendation.
Although we know you're doing it anyway.
Yeah,
it's just to formalise it.
So sometimes recommendations are carry on, we're doing a good job. Yeah, Councillor Taylor.
one more, and I know it's not about quantifying the investment. I just think some of the national discourse and more international as well is going about. I think if we can just all the benefits, even if it's not quantifiable exactly, I think it's important, because I think we're all in agreement that these things benefit not just financially but health impacts as well. And I think I'm sure fair enough, Steve's probably doing it as well. I think emphasising those benefits, that we collectively as a borough believe in these things, worry about politically what may happen, and people say, well, why are we doing all that? You know, so I think it's just stressing that benefits.
That's very interesting. So I'd written down on my potential recommendations, I'd written down quantifying the benefits, but then when Amanda made the point that it's such a small team and it would be quite a bit of staff time to do, I crossed it out again. So I don't know. Would it be possible to do a sort of a very small amount of work quantifying benefits that wouldn't detract from the really powerful work? Yeah, Amanda.
So yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's important that everybody is cited on the benefits, and I suppose my slight reservation is I couldn't do a return on investment business case in that form without it being slightly artificial and using national figures for prevention and avoidance, which of course can do. But I think it's absolutely right to ask to see what the benefits are and what that sense of the benefits against the investment we're making is. So I'm happy to bring a report back round to the panel on that.
Great. Okay. Perfect. So that's accepted. Elephant. Excellent. Sorry, where did that word come from? Good. So I think we're ready to move on. Unless anyone else has any more suggested recommendations, we're ready to move on to item 8, an overview of the low income family tracker. So again, sorry. Yes. Yeah, Rama, would you like to leave at this point, or you're very welcome to stay if you want to, but if you want to have the rest of your evening, you can go. Yes, so thank you very much indeed for all the valuable work you're doing, and for coming to tell us about it. Thank you. Yeah. Great. Yes, that's right. So so it's going to be Louisa presenting again. So the report and appendices illustrate the insight provided by the LIFT system and how the council intends to use it to maximise benefits for Ealing's vulnerable residents. So Louisa, please go ahead. Thanks.
Thank you. So I'm actually really excited to tell you about this because I find it really, really exciting. So as we've already kind of discussed this evening, we kind of spent the last couple of years getting all the fundamentals in place, making sure people can access the information that they need and the support that they're entitled to. As Rama also explained, we're still experiencing a high demand on our services, both across the council, but also across the voluntary and community sector. So what we want to do ultimately is stop residents from reaching these crisis points to start with. So we've taken a proactive step by investing in the LIFT platform. So LIFT stands for Low Income Family Tracker, and essentially it's a powerful data dashboard which allows us to identify the households in our borough who have got the lowest incomes. So we've currently got approximately 27,000 people who fall into that category and are listed on the dashboard. And we collect those using monthly updates from both key benefit and council data sources. So all of that information is fed over to Policy and Practice, who are our partners in this. They provide the dashboard. They input it into the dashboard and presents itself back to us in a very nice, neat fashion, which enables us to look at where those low income families are in the borough, some of the issues that they're facing. So for the first time ever, we've had access to this type of information, and it's created a huge amount of opportunity for us. I'm not, again, going to go through the detailed report, but I have included as an appendix the 7 Towns report, which just provides a high-level snapshot. So we did this as one of the first things we did when we got access to the dashboard back in May, was to provide a bit of an overview for each of our 7 towns. So I'm sure you'll find that interesting to look at from your perspective as members, to see where your wards fit into that information. So as I said, rather than waiting for residents to reach a crisis point, LIFT enables us to take a more preventative approach. So now we can actually specifically target cohorts, and for the first time we can actually translate those cohorts into names, addresses, contact details, so that we can proactively reach out to them in a way that we have not really been able to do before. This enables us to target people specifically when we know that they're missing out on things. So, for example, things like pension credit that we've already discussed, people who are not in receipt of free school meals when they should be, and essentially just offered a more tailored support to get more money into people's pockets. In a short space of time, it's really clear to see the benefits that this system brings. So we've talked a bit about pension credit, but essentially we've just entered into a 4th round of this campaign. So we've actually done 3 rounds prior to purchasing the LIFT platform in partnership with Policy and Practice as part of GLA funded campaigns. So they were really successful. And overall, we've had over 300 households claim an average of almost £4,000 a year, which has unlocked £2.5 million annually, and that's an expected lifetime value across the borough of £27 million. So these are huge figures when we're talking about pension credit for just a small number of households. I mentioned briefly before about our auto-enrolment into free school meals campaign. Again, this was another campaign that we led with Policy and Practice funded by the GLA. It secured £500,000 worth of funding for Ealing schools and almost £700 per family who was auto-enrolled onto that programme. And it's also worth bearing in mind that free school meals is a passport benefit to other benefits. So not only did they benefit from the free school meals, it's all of the other stuff that comes with it as well, like the household support fund. Another success story has been around the Healthy Start campaign. So this is a campaign targeted specifically at families with children under 4 or women who are also pregnant, to provide them with money to purchase healthy food and vitamins. So we saw a 6.6% uptake as a result of that campaign, which has got a projected lifetime value for participating families of £50,000. And finally, the attendance allowance campaign reached out to 925 residents in Ealing who we thought were eligible but not claiming for attendance allowance. And again, it's resulted in a huge uptake in the benefit, which has got a value of just over £200,000 annually for residents in the borough, which is fantastic. So looking forward, we have got a whole series of campaigns planned for between now, already started up until the end of the financial year at this point. You may have, they are all listed in the covering reports for you to have a look at. You may have seen in the media last week about a Thames Water auto-enrolment campaign. So we will be part of that campaign in December, and that will be looking at getting people who are on low incomes and in arrears with their water bills to provide them with capped bills on their water. So that's going to save those households up to £420 a year. We're still waiting for the figures on how many households that will be in Ealing, but we will get access to that in December. So beyond just looking at reaching out and doing that proactive outreach to low-income families, LIFT is also helping us shape policy across the council. It's informing strategies. It's giving us an insight that we haven't had access to before, so that we can support borough-wide initiatives. So that might be around poverty reduction and financial resilience, health inequalities, for example, and digital exclusion. And yeah, it's got a huge range of benefits. We've already seen a lot of use cases outside of the proactive campaign space that we can really utilise this data and insight across the organisation. Another benefit from the system that we have is that they have their own benefits calculator licenses. So we're currently in the process of issuing those out to key members of frontline staff so that we can do even more benefits maximisation at that first point of contact when we have those face-to-face contacts with people. And just making sure that all of the residents that come into contact with us are getting the support that they're entitled to. So it's not just a tool that gives us loads of data. It really is an opportunity for us to change the way we operate and reach out to people and support them in a way that we've not been able to do before. So it's really helping us move from a reactive crisis response to more proactive prevention. And hopefully, as we move forward, we'll be able to see the real financial impact and long-term value for residents in the borough when we use the system.
Great, thanks very much, Louisa. So I've got Councillor Taylor. I'll just, while other people are thinking what to ask, can I just ask a point of clarification in the report? So on the tables there are and there's an other column and it says it's households that are being supported who live out of borough. So would that be looked after children out of borough and households in temporary accommodation out of borough, or are there some other category that?
That's right. Sorry, yes, that's right. So some temporary accommodation that's been placed out of borough, and also some care leavers potentially be in that cohort as well.
Because it's quite large numbers. It's sort of about as many as Perivale. It's kind of about like a Wardsworth in a lot of cases, isn't it? So it's significant. But yeah, okay. So it's basically those categories. Yeah. So Councillor Taylor. Yep.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. One's a question and one's hopefully something you may or may be about to do. On the terms of the campaigns, that do you choose, or is it agreed by all the LIFT part boroughs? This is what we're going to focus on, or Ealing can just say we're going to use the LIFT system to do that because we're approaching this. Second one is, I think it's in the pipeline, and you mentioned the calculators, because this is crucial for the prevention of homelessness, particularly when people come. preventing homelessness, which obviously has the further cost if they're not preventing homelessness. So I don't know who else would need to have access to those calculators, but I think that closer working with the homeless prevention team, you know, early on to work out what people are entitled to, they're not getting, that will save going through the homelessness system. So May will be happy. I don't know all that's in the pipeline.
Yeah. To your first point, how do we choose? So for the GLA campaigns, we were invited to participate. Would you like to, you know, take part in this campaign? And we said yes to everything because everything had a benefit. We very quickly through that process realised the value of this platform, and now we've got the ability to run those campaigns on our own internally. What we have done is we've set up an internal LIFT working group across for the organisation. So that's led by a colleague in my team, and we have representatives from each of the directorates on that working group, and we have all of the people who've got a license to the platform as part of that group as well. And that's really important because we want to make sure that any campaigns that we do, we're prioritising them appropriately. We're putting our resources into the ones that are going to have the most impact. It also means that we are all aware of what each other is doing, because there is actually a risk here that we start bombarding people with messages, which is absolutely something that we want to avoid. So it ensures that we're taking a more coordinated approach to any proactive communications that we're doing, which so far has been working really well. We're still in the early days of this, but we've managed to come up with a plan that means there's no crossover of cohorts, which I think is really important. So in answer to your question, we decide as a group. In terms of the benefit calculators, as I said, we're setting up the licenses for that at the moment. 2 of them will be going to the financial inclusion officers that sit within housing. So they actually do have posts within housing and homelessness prevention who can sit and go through with residents this type of support. So we are trying to capture the key roles within the organisation, including homelessness, to make sure that the right people have got access to the system.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, Councillor Rice.
Thank you. Just it's interested looking at some of the paragraphs there on relative poverty, because sometimes there's this perception out there that you can be better off not working than if you are working, because the benefits might actually be of a greater value to you than you might be earning in a workplace. And I'm just trying to understand from these tables what exactly is the true experience with people from what you've got here. So I mean it is quite significant that people who are not in work and disabled seem to be far more likely to be living in a relative poverty. But at the same time, I mean, have you got any kind of experience or perception of what exactly is the situation with people who are not in work? Can they sometimes be better off than people who are in work? And if so, how do we ensure that people in work are still really finding that work pays? Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, people in work are still experiencing poverty. I think Rama explained earlier, the families that two parents are working and they're still experiencing a cash shortfall at the end of every month. We use the Joseph Rowntree definition of poverty. So that's when a person's resources, their material resources, are not sufficient to meet their minimum needs. That's generally the definition that we go for. And translated, that means people living in households with an income below 60% of the median income in 2024. And that's calculated after their housing costs have been taken into account. In terms of the LIFT system, it has its own definitions in there about what we mean when someone's in food poverty, in fuel poverty, in water poverty, and also about their financial resilience and cash shortfall definitions. So it looks at people in crisis, whether they're at risk of becoming in crisis, whether they're struggling or whether they're coping. So it's quite a complex set of definitions, which I have all of the information here. It's probably too much for these reports. I think we're definitely seeing more people who are of working age and in work experiencing poverty in a way that we've never seen before, and that creates its own challenges. It goes back to, people don't know where to go to help because they've never had to ask for help before. So that is definitely something that we're experiencing, and something that we probably need to delve further into using this data and how we can better support those groups.
Thanks. Can I ask about free school meals work? So clearly it has a huge return, both for the families but also the pupil premium. Is there any potential to expand the number of people that you're reaching out to, to sort of like a less high probability that they will qualify, but a kind of larger cohort, on the basis that even if a smaller proportion of them are actually able to qualify, it still would be worthwhile. Is there any potential to expand that particular campaign?
So the criteria for free school meals is set. So the free school meals campaign was an auto-enrolment campaign. So we actually looked at the data that was held in LIFT, and we cross-referenced it with the school census data to determine who was eligible but not claiming. So that list is a finite list. We managed to capture 219 people in the first round. We know that when we run the process again, we'll hopefully be in sort of single or very low figures, because we've done the bulk of the hard work on round one. But free school meals isn't something that we're able to offer unless they specifically qualify. Have I understood your question correctly? Sorry.
Yeah, I think I was probably misunderstanding the qualification. So it's purely based on other benefits, and there isn't an income qualification.
It's based on income. Yeah, that you've got to have a threshold of the income. I haven't got that figure to hand, to be honest, but I can get that for you.
Okay, but you don't have everyone's income though, do you? LIFT.
Well, we do as part of the data, because it's all part of the data that gets fed into the system. So if they've applied for universal credit, or as part of all of those application process, they have to declare their income.
I see. Yeah. So there's still some people who would qualify for free school meals, but we don't know because they haven't applied for.
They haven't applied. I see. Part of the problem is the emphasis is on the family to apply. So until we had permission to auto-enroll people in, which is actually, you've got to jump through quite a lot of hoops to enable you to put yourself in a position to do that. We are solely reliant on those families knowing that they've got a benefit that they can claim and making the claim. And the problem that we've had in the last few years, of course, is because all of London's primary school children have been receiving free school meals, which is fantastic for the people who really need it. But it means that people have dropped off the applications, because why would you put in an application for something that you're already getting? So it's been quite a difficult message that we've had to really work really closely with the schools to make sure that families understand that we know that you're already getting this meal for free because it's being funded centrally, but we still need your application to go in, because that is what triggers the pupil premium for the school, and it also triggers things like your household support fund vouchers, access to the holiday and food programme throughout the summer and winter breaks, and other things as well. So we've really been hammering that message home through our network in the schools to make sure that those applications are submitted.
Yes, I know my school, there's a kind of particular day that you qualify, isn't there? And so that they have particularly good school dinners on that day as an incentive. Yeah. Okay, great. So I've got another question. Is anyone else indicating, or you want? Well, yeah. So Councillor Ryan, then Councillor Rice. Can I ask another one? Yeah.
Just a minor supplementary. So do you think you're losing a lot of families through that kind of free school meals explanation?
I think we did. But I think we've caught them all now. So I think it just naturally people, particularly people who had children starting in reception when that universal benefit came in for all children to get free school meals, particularly if it had been their first child, they wouldn't have known to make an application for something that they were already receiving. So I think we did miss people. I think people slipped through the net for a period of time, but I'm now confident that we've gone through a process where we've captured all of those people again. And just a positive thing to sort of highlight, if you are in receipt of free school meals, you get what they call transitional protection. So if you, your family no longer meet the criteria for free school meals, you will still continue to receive them until you're at the end of your current education phase. So that would be the end of primary school if you're in primary school, or the end of year 11 if you were in high school. So it does have a long lasting benefit for some families, because if you qualify in reception, you will continue to receive those all the way through your child's primary school journey until they reach the end of year 6.
Thank you. So Councillor Rice, you have another one. Yep.
Yes, it's just one thing came to mind on the free school meals. I'm just wondering, with the food vouchers for the school holidays, what that covers and what safeguards have we got as to what that voucher covers. I'm just thinking in terms of there's no opportunity for someone to use those vouchers for something other than food for the child, that they can't just simply use those vouchers for other items that might be irrelevant to the conversation. Because I know that when it came in, when we first started talking about holiday hunger, would have been during COVID, and people were given parcels with actual food to last the child for during the week. But I suppose with the vouchers, it's probably a little bit difficult to control what's being done. Thank you.
It is difficult to control. So the vouchers go out to anyone who has got a child on free school meals, qualifies for free school meals, or for children with families with children under the age of 5, so preschool children who are either in receipt of housing benefit or council tax support. They also go out to our care leavers. We use a third-party organisation called Black Hawk to distribute the vouchers. It's quite the operation, 100,000 vouchers last year, and they get delivered mostly by email, but some by letter, to make sure that no one's excluded from the process. But yeah, it's the message is for they're for essential items. That can vary from family to family, to time of year to time of year. I know you can now buy school uniform in the supermarket, and I know that people spent some of their summer vouchers on school uniform rather than food. It really is about what they need at the time. It is hard to police the system. So yeah, we have to again trust that families will use them appropriately and spend them in the right places. They can only be spent in supermarkets. So it's just worth noting that.
Yeah, and I know, I suppose referring back to a conversation we had earlier, that there was, when they first started coming out, there was some people who thought it was like a scam when they got these Black Hawk communications, and I know people put on social media, what's this, is it real, and that had to be reassurance, but I guess that's in place now. Yeah, Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, just a quick one, Louise, and forgive me, I hadn't read all the charts before. Looking at the maps and the wards and stuff, there's wards that feature top 3 quite often that we'd expect, but the ones around food poverty and financial resilience threw me, because you've got Ealing Common and Pitshanger, which don't traditionally feature as areas of deprivation. So I was just wondering if you looked into that, what causes, or was it maybe some postcode thing? I don't know.
It is a postcode thing. So the Ealing Common one, we did recently look into, and that is a result of the YMCA that is based in that ward. It significantly skews the figures in that ward. So there's a quite a high concentration just in that one building, all with the same postcode actually, that skews the figures. The one in Pitshanger we also looked into, and I'm trying to recall now what the source of that was, but it's a similar type of anomaly. Is it Copley Close? No, I don't think it's Copley Close, because I think that falls in a different ward.
Copley is in Pitshanger.
Oh, it is.
I'll just suggest, I'll just suggest Gurnell as well, Gurnell Grove as well.
Yeah, there's just a couple of very small areas that have got high concentration that does make it, as you say, you wouldn't have expected those two wards specifically to feature in the top three.
Yeah, Councillor Rye.
But you also spoke about middle class poverty being on the increase, so that would inflate the numbers too now, surely.
That is true, and some of those people will fall into this 27,000 for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I think that clearly it's fantastic work and is bringing much needed help to a huge number of people. However, sort of slightly devil's advocate, in terms of the kind of the data governance side of it, so how's that controlled? Who's got access to the LIFT data? Is it entirely within the council, or does it include partners, third sector organisations, and what's done to make sure that it's confidential and ethically used? Because clearly it's hugely useful information for the council, but it's also that information aggregated is more sensitive than the individual bits it's made up of.
Yeah, it's a hugely sensitive data set containing a huge amount of personal data, which is ultimately identifiable. So we do have to be really careful about how that's managed. It took us a long time to embed the system, and this was one of the reasons why. So we have a huge number of documents and policies in place to make sure that that information is kept safe and is in line with all of our information governance guidelines that we have at the council and our policies. So we have, for example, a robust data processing information agreement in place. We have a solid data processing agreement in place with Policy and Practice, who's the external partner that hosts the system for us. We have our individual policies in place with the DWP, which is some of the data that we use to feed into this system. And then we've had to look at all of our privacy statements across the authority as well. So one of the questions is around GDPR and being able to actually reach out to these people. So we've had to make sure that we're at all times acting appropriately and within the right legal framework. So the legal basis that we have to do that is something called public task, or basically public interest. So if we are reaching out to people and seem to be doing something good that will benefit them, that it's not direct marketing, for example, then we have the authority to do that. So it's been quite a long process to make sure that we have got all of the T's crossed and I's dotted, that legal and procurement and our information governance team have been involved in. And I'm now a minor expert in this field, which I wasn't at all when we started. So yeah, it's been quite the challenge. In terms of how we store the data, we've got a secure area within the council's network where we store the data. Only 3 people have access to that. So there are 10 licence holders across the authority, but it's only my team, 2 members of my team and a member of our data and insight team that can actually access the data. We've specifically kept that really tight. We've got our own policies and internal team policies around data retention and how that data needs to be stored and where it needs to be stored. It's also just worth noting that as part of the working group that I described earlier, we have colleagues from IT sitting on that to advise us on any information governance issues that they might foresee with any of the campaigns that we're running. And we've developed for services to use, because it is a really complex issue, actually, an information governance checklist of all the things they need to check through before we can execute a campaign. So in answer to your question, it's been a lot of work to make sure that we're acting appropriately. But yeah, as an organisation, we've got it covered. Yeah.
So thank you, Louisa. That's a very comprehensive, reassuring answer. Well, so just Councillor Midder, I think your mic must be on, because we're hearing occasional little beeps. So if Councillor Midder can hear this, can you turn my mic off, please? And Councillor Donnelly.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to say thank you to Louisa and all the team who helped put this in place. Because I think what we get from this is a raised and solid platform from which to move forward, because inevitably up to this point there's been an element of guesswork and groping in the dark as to where the target audiences are. And of course, I think the other thing is it doesn't solve all our issues. It tells all of the data that all of this data is real data and solid. Other data exists that isn't part of this, and we won't forget that out in the real world, you know, there are poor people who don't perhaps interact with the system in the way that reflects here. But it also shows, I think, school meals shows what you can do with the following wind, and the following wind is auto enrolment. If you look at the others where we've worked really hard and we've contacted people and we've done much better in response than other boroughs have done. Outside in pension credit, you've got about a 27% reaction rate. In the others, it's 6%, it's 4%. So the notion that, which someone like myself, I might think, well, all we need to do, we basically tell people they're entitled to money. They'll be so delighted to hear it that they'll knock us down on the way to the post box. It doesn't work that way. So, you know, that, but at least now we know that isn't enough. So then we build the next step. And I think without this kind of data, we wouldn't have been able to produce the kind of quality approach that we'll be able to build moving forward.
Yes, thank you. I mean, I think we would certainly, you know, commend this work. I mean, clearly, you know, it is, as I said a few moments ago, you know, it's enormously valuable, both to the families who end up, you know, receiving additional help, but also kind of more broadly to society. It's clearly hugely useful. Are there any recommendations arising from this item? I didn't pick up any recommendations other than just, as I say, that, you know, clearly we would endorse the work and encourage, as the portfolio holder said, you know, encourage building on that platform to go further. Yeah. Right. Yep.
It goes back to my earlier point. Again, sorry, forgive me if it is done. You know, the benefit calculations, I think you should build them into the personal housing plans of homelessness cases as they come through. You need to check with the housing team if it's happening, of course, because I think there is a move in terms, because there is a huge cost of homelessness. You know, Steve Donnelly will know this, but and what do we do about prevention? And there's a sense of people going through that door and say, actually, what can be done? And it's the I know some authorities are saying as part of the condition of personal housing plans, you go through the checks as well. And if we can do our bit, it's important. But it's something you need to investigate with the housing and the homelessness team, to be honest. But because I think there's a benefit in what we're doing, but let's maybe build that in. Yeah.
Yeah, so are members happy with that? I mean, that's so incorporating the benefit calculator into the homelessness, personal housing plan within homelessness prevention. Yeah, agreed. Good. Any other suggestions for recommendations? No. Great. So that brings us to the end of the agenda then. So thank you very, very much to Louisa in particular for driving both those items, and also to Amanda and Steve and all the members of the committee. So our next meeting will be Tuesday, 2nd of December. So thanks very much. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, Councillor Midder.